My son turned 21 and came to visit me on the set of 21 Jump Street. And he went in, I said, I know you've never had anything to drink.
All right, we got to get all this on the mic.
I know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it was so hilarious.
Well, because it's perfect bar conversation.
I know,
Sure
right?
is.
I am Alan Winson, and today the barcrawlradio hosts are getting acquainted with the hosts of the podcast Angst and Daisies, Steve Saporito and Caroline Aaron. And we met Steve at a huge Saugerties, New York crafts fair in early fall of 2019. He shared his picnic table with us, and your friend Ed Edwards was there.
Yep.
There's a name that can go either way.
Yep. Actually, it goes both ways.
Goes both ways.
Yeah, it's Edward Edwards.
Edward Edwards.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And at the time we talked, he was a most interesting fellow, as you will see. And I guess we sounded kind of interesting to him.
Yeah.
Because we decided to produce a dual podcast. It's not a dueling podcast.
Not a dueling.
Not a dueling.
pod-
But
no,
we're
no,
going to
no.
work
What a
together.
Well,
What a dual
we'll see
podcast.
about that.
Yep.
That's right.
Oh, and I am Becky McCain, and we're hosting this dual podcast at Gebhard's Beer Culture Bar on West 72nd Street, across the street from the mortuary and around the corner from the Daniel Barracan Center for Art and Activism, which may or may not have anything to do with today's conversation at a neighborhood bar. Here we go. My line.
Ba, 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 da, ba, ba,
There's us.
There's us. You're listening to the Angst and Daisies podcast.
And so I'll kick it off. This is listening to the Angst and Daisies.
That's you.
I do those
You can find us
live.
on
That's not
iTunes,
pre-recorded.
Stitcher.
Okay, well, go on. Do it live, Steve.
You're listening to the Angst and Daisies podcast. You can find us on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and we have absolutely no social media presence because social media sucks. This is my partner, Caroline. She is Joe Dirt's mom.
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. Hi,
Among other things.
Among other things. How are you, Caroline?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
I know, it's kind of cool.
Drinking in the afternoon.
Right?
Yeah, so what are we
So
all what are
naughty.
we all drinking?
I have some nice Elijah Craig bourbon.
Which you had a story about.
With 2 ice cubes, mostly because I was a producer on Hedwig and the Angry Inch up here on Broadway.
Okay.
And our music director, Justin Craig, is part of the Elijah Craig family.
Oh, there you go.
He is distantly removed, but he still has the Craig name.
Very good. Very good.
You got the Craig credit.
He got
So
the
you're
Craig
You're
credit.
supporting your
Yeah.
friends.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm
And-
having a Bloody Mary because I'm a beginner drinker. So I always need some, an add-on.
And it's
But-
healthy, too, because it has
Is
tomato
it?
juice and...
Okay, good.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's vegetables.
it's-
I'm having a
vegetable.
vegetable with alcohol.
There you go.
That's right.
me. I rarely drink, but drinking in the afternoon makes me feel like I've taken a big step forward.
That's right. You're a grown-up girl now.
And now I am. I'm so excited. Woman, that's right.
I'm a woman.
Man. I've got in trouble of calling women girls.
And he does it
Or
all
gals.
the time. He gets in trouble all the time.
My sister got so angry when I called.
know.
I called someone a gal.
Your daughter doesn't like it
I
either.
like it.
Gal.
Gal.
I like being a gal, a broad, a girl,
Yeah.
a woman. I don't care.
I don't mind. I think maybe it's our generation. We don't really.
No.
I'm not
I'm not getting hung
bothered
up on
by it.
vocabulary. There's too many other things to fix.
I'm telling
Right,
you. I'm
right,
telling you.
right.
And you guys talk about that. And Becky, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Tito's and tonic.
Oh, right on.
Oh,
Right.
uh-huh.
And I'm drinking
I'm very alliterative.
Killsborough Island. It's a Staten Island brewery.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's an IPA, a little citrusy.
Uh-huh.
Not too forward with that.
It's like
bitterness.
grapefruity or...
Little bit,
little
not
bit?
too much. I don't like that real grapefruity
Yeah,
IPA.
yeah,
Like,
So this, I mean, you want to taste it?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
I do.
Because I'm bourbon.
I'd like to taste
I'm
it.
Sure.
bourboning.
Since I'm not a
Sure, you're
drinker.
going crazy,
Sample.
Caroline.
I know she's going to be drunk by the
I
time
know.
we're done.
I already
Three sips of a Bloody Mary and a
well,
sip of beer.
He's like
It's an
Alan now.
IPA.
She's
Yeah,
like
see,
Alan now.
IPA is she's given a
Doesn't drink very much.
face.
No, really. I'd rather eat my calories. That's just how I am.
It's a bitter. I mean, you have to get used to that. It's a taste you get used to. So I was thinking.
Oh, but wait, that was Wade Ripka in our intro.
Wade Ripka's Bop
Bop. Yeah.
Right,
He's a
right.
Russian band, and he plays at
Barbez.
Barbez, thank you.
Right. It's
Barbez.
the Eastern Blockheads. He plays 70s Eastern Russian music.
Oh, wow.
70s Russian music.
Wow.
He was
Out in Brooklyn at
Really
Barbez.
talented. Wade Ripka. Yeah. So I thought we'd start by our partners introducing us.
Oh,
Oh.
to you?
Well, to whoever's listening.
Oh, okay.
Those people in Ukraine, I hear, who are
Yes.
listening to.
Yes, we do have
we
a following.
we do have a following in the Ukraine for some
We
reason.
have listeners in Israel. They're mostly his cousins.
Oh, right on. Right on.
I want
Well-
to tell you how this came about because this is all Steve's concoction. I lived in Los Angeles for 24 years and moved back to New York right after Steve. Steve lived in Los Angeles with me and moved to New York, and I came, tumbling after. Before I actually lived here, one of the first things I did was I took my son down to Occupy Wall Street, where Steve was occupying, and I wanted him to see what real activism looked like, because he had grown up with me, who sat on the couch and yelled at the television, but didn't really do anything. And Steve said, I want to do a podcast with you because you're the most curious person I know. Because I'd always call Steve and go, who am I voting for? What do I feel? What should I do? And he said, I'm going to get you off the couch and into the resistance. And that's what our podcast is going to be about. So he's taught me a lot. And he will have to explain the name Angst and Daisies.
Right.
Okay, but wait, can I interrupt? I have a
Yes.
question. So did I miss it? Did you say how you met?
No, we did not say our original meeting.
We met on a film set that I was working on, and Caroline's children were performing it.
Oh,
That's
cool.
true.
Their one and only movie, and I was contemplating moving out and looking to move out to LA, and we were out on the porch, and she said, so you're moving here from New York? And I said, yeah. She's like, go back now. I've been here 5 years. I'm stuck. Do not get stuck here, and don't do it.
You took her advice?
Well, what happened?
He moved in with me and stayed.
Well, what happened was is
Didn't pay any rent.
no. What happened was I was looking for. I like to find unusual places, and so I was looking for like a carriage house. And Caroline's like, I have a carriage house, and the guy who's in there, he's been there for a while. He's really nice, but I'm kind of bored with him. I wish he'd go away. And I was looking for an apartment. I was at that point where there were 2 apartments that I didn't love, but could suffice. And I was like right at the point of making that decision. And Caroline calls me up. She goes, oh my God, he's moving out. You should come over and
Wow.
see the place.
Quick.
Yeah.
Quick.
And before he changes his mind.
And
I know, it's true.
I didn't know LA very well, and I'm driving down Melrose, and I make this right down Larchmont. And for me, it felt kind of like, where the hell am I? Nothing seems to be happening here. I don't know if I want to live all the way out here. And then I hit this one block of Larchmont Boulevard that was like a little slice of the Upper East Side.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it had restaurants, and at the time it had a Blockbuster and a bagel store and a pizzeria.
And
There
people
you go.
walking.
And people walking.
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
right.
a
In
news-
LA?
In
In
LA.
LA.
And a newsstand, and the house was like a half a block off this.
Yeah.
And I like walk in, we go in the backyard, there's a pool, old school. It's a very old, like old
Nice.
Hollywood house.
Yeah, sounds great.
Old school. We go up into the thing. She goes, you don't have to do it. I walk into this like 500 square foot room with 16-foot ceilings, and I'm like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Like she's like, you can think about it. I'm like, I've thought about it. I'm taking it.
And then
things
he
you don't
raised
think
my
about.
children.
Yeah.
which was
He
really
did.
nice.
Yeah.
And then I moved in, and her son was in the 5th grade, and her daughter was 5. After about a year or so, she's started introducing me as the guy who's helping to raise her kids.
Okay.
You know, it was like
Yeah.
playing John Madden football with her son, and I would beat him, and she'd walk out and go, aren't you supposed to let the kids win?
No.
And I like,
No.
oh, Ben, come here. It's
No.
like, she wants to know if I should let you win. And like the little 5th grade Ben who looks up and goes, what are you, insane, Mom?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we haven't really introduced each other.
Oh,
Okay, but wait,
Because
but he
people
was
may
gonna-
recognize
Her.
Caroline Aaron's
They
name.
might.
They
So,
might.
Caroline.
Okay,
so
they
we're
might
on it-
recognize my voice first from Sleepless in
in
Seattle.
That's
Okay.
Oh, right.
Yes, I'm
yeah.
Sleepless in Seattle.
Do you want me to? I'll do a. Can I do a little intro of you?
Sure, please do. I
So
wouldn't know what
Caroline. So Caroline has been, like I said, Joe Dirt's mom. She's been Woody Allen's sister. She is currently Mrs. Maisel's mother-in-law.
We love that.
Oh, we're just
to say. I
obsessed
am
with it.
Mrs. Maisel.
She is
Not the
Mrs.
marvelous one.
That's right.
She is
But
the
I am
other.
That's
Mrs.
right.
Maisel.
You are Mrs. Maisel.
no, but you're
That's
pretty
right.
marvelous in that show.
Thank you.
She has had
Really.
Edward Scissorhands cut her hair.
It's true.
She was the boss to.
Did they actually cut your hair?
No.
No.
Wow.
we had lots of wigs.
You're
Yeah.
so silly.
She has
That's
been
okay.
the boss to the brother from another planet.
It's true.
It is true. What else?
Lots of Broadway,
Lots of Broadway.
lots of off-Broadway, lots of movies, lots of TV.
What do you like best?
Probably theater, because it's harder and scarier. It's
Yeah.
much more living. It's a high wire act. I mean, it's all a high wire act, but that's the scariest of all,
Right.
and that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Because you're out there and you don't know what's going to happen.
You don't. It's live. It's like what you guys are doing, except for that you can erase and
Yeah,
cut.
we can
Yeah,
edit.
it's
I mean,
true.
this is more
We
like
can-
film.
If
'cause
you
we-
would,
Yes, exactly.
if you
Right.
would just take those burps
Right.
out.
Yeah.
So
No,
we
leave the good stuff in.
We were at Uptown. We do this show. We called it the Other Show, where we just talk to each other, kind of like you just talk to each other. But
Yes.
we don't. We talk to each other about inane things. So last night we talked to each other about hair.
About hair.
But
Yes.
what I'm getting to is
The
that
show?
there is a
Right,
person.
the whole thing on hair.
Yeah,
right?
just hair, like obsession with
No, not
hair.
not the show. No, though that ended the show. Yeah.
And there was this woman at the bar, and she was excited to see us because she had been there before, and we'd met her, and I guess she knew you from long ago or something. I don't know.
I didn't recognize
But she was
her.
really sweet, and we got on to saying that you're going to be on our show tomorrow night and tomorrow afternoon, and we talked about Mrs. Maisel and Maisel.
Maisel.
Maisel, right.
And she said, "Do you know, they film over at Artie's. That's where the comedians hang out, at Artie's."
We didn't know that.
So excited.
Because
She's
you
gonna-
haven't had any scenes at Artie's.
No, because
That
I
I
haven't been. The families have not yet been interfaced with her career, except for that there was one time when her father actually saw her doing stand-up.
Right.
But
Terrific.
the Mahnattan, as we like to call ourselves, Kevin
Yeah.
and I, we have not yet seen Midge do stand-up.
So is it going to happen?
Honestly,
You can't tell.
No, I'm not supposed to tell, but in this case, I'm not keeping a secret because I don't know.
You don't know, right.
And what I heard at the end of the third season is when the creators, the brilliant Amy and Dan Sherman Palladino, pitched this show in their minds and hearts, they knew what was going to happen in the first 3 seasons. They knew it was going to go all the way through to where the audience is. And now I think they are as ... as we are.
Yes.
And they haven't told us anything.
Well,
And
they're
you're in the
writers, though.
third season now.
The third season is already out on Amazon. We're starting the 4th season, filming the 4th season
Yes.
this spring.
Yeah,
And
we
it'll
saw
come
the
out in
third
December.
season. We
Yeah.
saw it.
Right.
Yeah.
We watched it. Anyway.
Right. Yeah,
And
we
one night-
binge it. We binge
Well,
it.
yeah.
Steve
Yeah,
called
what you
me.
do
I
these
had
days.
not yet watched it. It's not. I don't run to watch myself do anything, so it's not like I was excited. Many people saw it before I did, but Steve watched it like the first weekend it came out. And he called me and he was like crying. I went, really? He went, it's so moving at the end. I didn't expect it, and then I
Yeah,
thought, well, now
yeah.
I have to watch it.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to see what
yeah.
Steve's experience
Yeah.
was.
I love it when your character gets in with their maid.
Oh my God.
Isn't that
Oh,
so
it's,
fun?
it's awesome.
It's like they're both smoking together and
Right.
watching television.
Cooking schmaltz.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
so down to earth in
Yeah,
a
she
way,
is.
but yet it's crazy and wild and rich and yeah.
So I
That's
don't
why
know the
people
maid.
like her.
Yeah.
People
Yeah,
like
yeah.
relate to her.
You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
always
yeah.
say when I do press for this show, this is the first time I've ever played a character that reminds everyone of someone they love. It's either their aunt or their grandmother or their mother.
Especially
or,
if you're Jewish.
Well, even so, even if you're not, I mean, the show has become an international hit, which is so weird. Like, why? I have no idea. I just saw a documentary that sort of relates to this called Miracle of Miracles about the way Fiddler on the Roof took the world by storm, and they had a montage of it being done in Thailand, in China, in Russia, and they interviewed people and said, why do audiences go to see this, like in China? Why are you? They said it just feels like it's the story of us.
Right.
And people feel the same way about Maisel. Isn't that interesting?
No,
I
it is
think- I think
totally
Fiddler-
interesting because the culture is so different.
I know. It's a, the great theater director, Peter Brooks, said, that which is truly personal becomes universal. And I
Absolutely.
think this is so specific and so authentic that it blows up and puts its arms around lots of different kinds of people.
Yes.
Yeah, I
And
keep
it's
looking
a
at
woman's story,
Yes.
which is
And
so
it's
nice.
very subversively political and feminist.
Oh, yes.
While you're being delighted, you don't really know, the spoonful of sugar is helping the medicine go down.
Yeah.
You know,
I
when,
guess,
when
yeah.
she's putting on the makeup for her husband every morning when he wakes up,
Yeah.
and then you find it that she learned that from her mother.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff
know.
in it. There's
to
so
bite into.
TV has gotten, I think, better in a lot of ways than a lot of film.
Oh, it's so much better, and that's what I think the whole industry has switched over to that. And I also think television is trying to be a witness to our times. I mean, if you think about Bombshell and The Loudest Voice and the rise of Fox News and Roger Ailes, those are the stories they're telling, which is a much more fun way to encounter our history than
Yeah.
actually in classrooms.
or in living it.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, I was just
We're
gonna
both in
say.
classrooms.
Oh, you are? Yeah.
Well,
I'm a professor.
I
teach film.
I make my lessons exciting. My history lessons
No, she
exciting.
does.
Good.
She's
You do?
a great
Okay,
teacher.
good. Good.
She's a great teacher.
Well, I don't know about that,
All
but-
right. We got to switch the tables here because now, Caroline, you need to introduce Steve.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Steve Saporito. All right, I'm so happy to do that. As you already know, Steve and I started out as friends, but I have to tell you, even though he's going to object to this, you can't say anything till I'm finished. Steve is truly in my life the only really person who walks his talk, who is an honest-to-God activist, and I was the daughter of an activist, and so I wanted to know, how do you actually do that? And Steve doesn't come by that as an inheritance. It is not who his family is, it's who he is, and I was always so impressed by that. And you know, it's something we all have to be, is off the couch and into the resistance if anything is going to change. I mean, I've sat, I'm sure you guys have too, lots of dinner parties and lots of living rooms complaining, moaning, whining, grieving about the state of things. Steve actually puts his, sweat into it and has introduced me to these amazing people that have been on our podcast. And the one that probably had the most influence on me was this nun named Sister Susan, who shows up everywhere to object. And I can't remember what was happening that was so disappointing, because I am naive enough to go, okay, this is it. This is it. He's not getting out of this. He's going down. And then, of
She's
course,
talking about Trump, not me.
yes,
Oh, okay,
no
okay, thanks
consequences.
for clarifying
No,
that.
that we live in the world of no consequences. And I said to Sister Susan, what's the point in all of this? She sat in on buildings and she said,
She shut down the Guggenheim.
yeah, and she said activism is not a one-off. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of life, and you just have to do it your whole life. If you see something wrong, you have to put your energy into trying to correct it. And I went, wow, she's absolutely right. I'd been like out in the field 2 or 3 times with Steve, and I went, nothing changed. I'm not doing it anymore.
Right,
And
yeah.
then I talked to Sister Susan. And so not only that, but Steve and I, obviously share a profession, because these are the things I love about Steve. He's a lapsed Catholic and a lapsed lawyer. Both of those things are in his back pocket that he really has turned his back on a little bit, and now he represents people, creatives on Broadway, and so that's pretty exciting for me. And as I said, my kids, this is my new theory of child rearing. They need grown-ups that aren't you, and I gave them Steve. So no matter what else I did wrong, I did that right.
Very good.
Fantastic. Steve, you're blushing.
I am. It's so not true, but except for the Sister Susan part.
Yes.
She is a woman who really, I met her at Occupy Wall Street. She is a woman who walks the walk and talks the talk, and has compassion beyond compare. And she is one of the beautiful souls that walk this earth. And I'm exceedingly happy to know her and glad we got to. And she comes on every once in a while.
It's amazing that we have found you because we, I think, do something very similar
yeah.
here with barcrawlradio, because we're in touch with the Catholic workers.
You are?
Oh yeah,
Down on
and-
3rd Street.
and with the
Yes.
Kings Bay Plowshare 7.
Yep.
That are going to be going to jail.
We've interviewed
for,
them a few times.
Aren't you admiring of those people?
Oh, absolutely.
That's the way I feel.
We had 2 of them
Carolyn,
sitting right where you're sitting.
Yeah.
And they had their ankle bracelets on because they were under house arrest for going on to the nuclear base in Georgia.
Georgia.
And protesting
The Trident
the
missile.
Trident missiles in Georgia. And they're going to be going to prison, these 2 wonderful, wonderful, amazing people.
So when I first met them, Alan had, last year, he met someone who was connected with this organization called WAT, Witness Against Torture. And they every year annually do a protest where they fast. And then they go out into the streets of Washington, D.C., and they do different
They
protest
protest against the
events.
Guantanamo prison.
And they're
Yes.
protesting against the fact that the detainees are still being held there. There's 40. And so I was working. I couldn't join him, but he was there all week with them. And I came on Saturday or Friday night or whatever. I brought the equipment in the car, and he found a bar, and we had a bar
episode,
crawl radio, an
yeah.
episode, yeah. And I honestly have to say, I was not looking forward to it. I was thinking, these are a bunch of crazies. What, how interesting can this be? They're just, they're just nuts and dedicated and whatever. I couldn't have been more wrong. They
Yes.
were the most interesting, the
Inspiring.
most intelligent, inspiring, loving, lovely people
I could
that
never,
I've ever
I could
met.
never be that. I could never be
Yes,
what they
but
are.
that's what I always thought until I hooked up with Steve and we started doing Angst and Daisies. And there was a man that we interviewed once, right when we started creating internment camps for immigrant children. That was
Josh Rubin.
Oh, he was so remarkable. And here was just a successful businessman, a middle-class guy who just decided that he was going to do something and drove down there and parked a van and sat there until he could make contact with these children and take their voices back out to us. And I thought, wow, if any of us just did a tip of the iceberg of these really heroic people, it would make a difference.
Yeah, he's from Brooklyn and saw what was happening at Tornillo on the border and just literally picked up and went down there.
Just drove there.
And created what is now known as Witness Tornillo, and then became Witness Parkland in Florida, where once Tornillo closed, they went to Florida. So he is somebody who lives it. And
Yes.
And his wife kept saying, you have to come home. You have to come home. So it wasn't like he had nothing else going on. Do you know what I mean? It was like
No.
he had to really...
So that makes it even harder.
It makes it even harder. And one of the things he said was when he first got there was like chicken wire fence around the facility. And so he could talk to the kids. And he was telling us things that they were saying, which is, where's my mommy and daddy? I don't know why I'm here. Why am I here? And then they got an idea that he was having communication, and they put up green garbage bags in front of the chicken wire so that he had no access to them anymore, and that they could create the narrative of what was going on inside these places. But he
Right.
was there to really bear witness, and he was just a guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I have learned from Steve is you don't need to be qualified in any particular way
No.
to participate. And that's kind of a good thing.
You need to be touched with some need to do that.
A sense of
I mean, the
decency.
people that we've met, and they sound very similar to yours, it's like there is no other choice.
Yes,
Right,
that's
right.
right.
There is nothing else to do except what I'm doing, even if it doesn't make
Even if it
Right,
fails.
right. And I was looking for results when I talked to
Right,
Sister
right,
I'm
Susan.
constantly looking for. I'm
I want the
asking them-
results.
We ask them all the time. We
And
ask
they're
them-
not even interested if anyone is like looking at them.
Right.
That's
or
right.
If there's PR, they're doing it because that's what they have to do.
That's
because they
right.
want to be on that side. They want to be on that side of the line.
That's right.
They want their children to know they did the right thing.
That's
Right,
right. And
right.
if you multiplied them times everybody who feels the way we feel,
Yeah.
it would make a big noise.
A lot of what you
Yeah.
guys talk about is politics.
Yes,
And
it
I
is.
Pretty much all.
I mean,
of
pretty
it.
much politics.
We
And I
talk
think-
about her family sometimes too.
Yes, we do.
But
Well, the ones
mostly
I've been
politics.
listening to lately, it's been about the impeachment, about the election, la 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 la.
It's mostly what it is Caroline is the representative of the average person.
Every
out there.
person.
Yeah.
Which
Right.
is what I feel like I am.
So she,
Yes, I'm trying to get some guidance and give me a way to take all of this rage and anxiety and make it valuable, as opposed to just having it turn in on my family or me.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
I
And
think
I'm
your
not the
show should
only
be-
one.
Should be anger and daisies.
I think you're right.
Or anger and
Well,
angst.
angst.
Yes.
Take
Angst
daisies
is-
out of it.
Doesn't
Angst
angst have anger too? I mean, it's,
Yes, that's what it was for.
Angst is that jittery feeling of disquiet in you. So
yes,
Right.
yes.
that's where it came from. It also came from a band that I used to manage, and the song is called Angst and Daisies.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
that's where he won.
But
So
how
that's-
did daisies fit into your podcast?
Well,
Sometimes-
clearly Caroline is the daisy.
Okay.
Exactly.
The daisy.
I'm the
Okay.
angst and she's the
That's what I
daisy.
said.
I
It's
see.
the sort of, let's say,
Well-
what can bloom from resistance.
Well, it's also if you look at it, for every sort of like talking about Donald Trump and angsty kind of things, there is a Josh Rubin who is the daisy.
yes,
There is
absolutely.
a Sister Susan who is the daisy.
Right. Okay.
There
okay.
are the Dr. Dan who works, with opioid addiction that we interviewed is the daisy, to remind people that even in bad times, and I feel we're in really bad times, there are good things that come through.
All right,
Right.
let's talk about that, because I think an argument has been made that Donald Trump is awful, but yet he has woke us up. We're woke now.
Well, I think
and we
that-
wouldn't have
that's-
been woke
Yes.
without
Yes.
him. So we kind of needed him.
Yes.
I don't know if I
We
go
needed
along
to
with
see.
that argument.
But in a
I think
way,
we saw it. We don't
needed
need
to see
more of it. I think we got the message. The
It's
bell has
not just
been rung.
him, though.
Yeah, but
It's
we
he-
still have
He
him.
woke up the dinosaur. He woke up the dragon, and we didn't really see them.
He
Yes.
gave Because I think we talked about this the last podcast. We should have really gotten in the streets.
I remember you talking about
when
that.
Mitch McConnell would not let Merrick Garland have even a hearing.
Why didn't we?
That's what Steve said.
Why
That was the
didn't
moment.
we?
I was pissed off. I would,
Pissed off is not even the name
I
for
know.
it.
Well, it's the beginning of the creation of the banana republic that we have now. That as we sit here and they frog march Lieutenant Colonel Vidman out of the White House, and he wants Joe Biden investigated, and Roger Stone, Barr comes in and reduces the request of the Justice Department, and we have career people who are resigning now. I mean, if people don't see that the
From the
structures-
Justice Department,
from
right?
the Justice
they
Department,
just, they just resigned.
yeah, and if we don't see that the structure of our republic is falling by the wayside, and that the Republican Party is enabling it, this is Mitch McConnell's dream. Like Donald Trump, we all focus on Donald Trump.
Oh, I know.
But the architect of
The
all
real
of
evil,
this
yes,
is Mitch McConnell.
yeah.
And
We know a voiceover director, Paul Rubin, not Paul Allen Rubin, but not Pee Wee.
Not Pee Wee.
He's like an award-winning audio producer, and he did a book with Mitch McConnell.
He did? Oh, I want to
yeah.
hear everything.
No, and I interviewed him. Maybe I'll pull a piece of it.
Oh, I
into
want to
this.
hear what he has to
Yeah,
say.
and it's like it was years ago.
Oh, you
Mitch
interviewed
McConnell came
Paul.
with the book, and I interviewed not Mitch McConnell.
No, I know you. The
my friend
author.
Paul
I would
Rubin.
love to know what his perspective was.
And he's because he spent like a couple days with Mitch McConnell.
What was the book about? It was a book
It
on
was about
tape.
his life.
It was about him.
They had lunch together.
Oh, and he would
Mc-
bring his lunch
Right.
in a brown paper bag. It was
McConnell.
like a ham sandwich or something, or bologna on white bread with mayonnaise
his
kind of
wife
sandwich
made for him.
that his
And
wife
so he seemed
made
like a
for him.
real
I would,
person.
if I were Mitch McConnell, I would not eat food that other people prepared for fear that
Well,
they
it
would
was-
try and
His wife.
poison
My-
me.
But the thing is, my friend, my
What was his
good
impression
friend,
of him?
That he's a really good guy. He
Right.
doesn't.
This was
This
a-
was his
this was-
initial
this was
impression.
about a year
This
or
was-
two
No,
ago.
this is about 2 years ago.
2
when
years ago,
Mitch McConnell
yeah.
came out with his book. He says he has an opinion, but it's
Right.
well thought out,
And-
he was very impressed by this guy because he was very low key.
Right.
Paul's
They
a
had
very
his-
friendly, friendly person who tries to see
who
the best
wants
in everyone.
to see the best in everyone. And so recently, I couldn't believe what he
Time
said.
for
that,
an update.
Yeah, for an update. No, I did. I
But we
updated
had a
him and I
party
said-
afterwards with some friends, and one of the son of the party was saying, "He's evil. He's evil."
And
How
Paul now
could you?
agrees he is an evil
does.
man. Oh, yeah.
You know what's
Paul
very
Paul?
interesting about
Yeah.
this time for me is that I always said to my children, progress is inevitable. There is a rhythm to moving forward, and I understand your impatience, particularly my daughter, but I will say to her, there are doors that I walked through that were closed to my mother. There are doors that you're walking through that were closed to me. It's just a natural rhythm. If you get impatient and you want to kick the football down the field faster, I'm all for it. But when you look at history, if you take the airplane view, things have moved forward.
Forward, they do.
This is the
Things
first time in
progress.
my life where it's going backwards. It's that rhythm of going backwards that is so paralyzing.
Right.
It's like, wait, we already fought this. We already cleared this up.
Right.
We already made this work.
We became,
it's a
maybe
pendulum.
we became complacent. I remember I was listening
Yes,
to your
maybe
podcast
we're
and you
not
were talking
grateful.
about all the way back to Reagan, and the Bushes, and that we've just let things drop. We've
Yep.
just kind of like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah. We just let it happen. Speaking as somebody who I will identify as a Democrat, all right, and we just let it happen. And it's like I said, you walk in and the kid's playing with gasoline and matches, and you go, eh. And the second time gasoline, and the third time the house burns down. Like, who's to blame?
Right, you are.
You are.
But
because
you think
let
to
it
yourself,
happen.
let's say in terms of women's issues, I'd like to be putting my energy towards women getting equal pay. But now we have to put our energy towards Roe versus Wade to protect something that I thought that had been covered.
Right.
And we could move on to the next thing to make it even better.
Right.
We can't. Now we have to go backwards and make sure we shore up things
Right.
that have already, I thought, were self-evident and already cleared up, but they're not. And I don't know how much further backwards. Do you think we'll go all the way back to slavery? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just going.
I don't know that far from that. I was thinking you're using the word backwards. I just want to go back instead of backwards.
That's
your,
right.
Your mother, Nina.
Yes, Nina. Oh, you pronounced her name right. I love you.
I learned it from a good man.
Yes, you did.
Steve told me. Tell us about Nina.
Nina Babette. Isn't that such a southern
Babette.
name?
It's a great name.
It's at Nina Babette.
Babette.
She was born in Selma, Alabama, and raised in Macon, Georgia, and she was Jewish.
And did you have a Southern accent?
She had quite the Southern accent, and I wore white gloves growing up.
I never thought
I did.
about that.
I always wore white gloves to go downtown. Said yes, ma'am, and no, sir. Had to get dressed for dinner. She had a little silver bell.
Oh, wow.
My sister and I always had on crinolines and were dressed. I mean, it was Southern.
That's
Southern.
amazing.
And they were only in Richmond, Virginia, too. I mean,
Which is the capital of the Confederacy.
Okay,
Which is
okay.
more
Yeah.
Southern than any city
Okay.
south of the Mason-Dixon
She's
line.
got you there.
They hold on to that.
Oh, they still have the statues, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That was the whole thing. Is that Monument Avenue?
Right.
And I sang
Still
Dixie
there.
every morning. When I went to school, I had to sing Dixie.
Wow.
And they flew the American flag and the Confederate flag and their Civil War reenactments. And my mother was an activist, a real activist. Okay, so she started when she was a little girl, and there were chain gangs in Selma. And she jumped on the back of a policeman and bit him because he was beating a little boy. She got taken to jail. My grandfather had to go
Oh,
bail
my
her out.
goodness.
How old was
She was
she?
like 9.
Oh, my
When she was
goodness.
11, she was sent to Washington, D.C. to represent Alabama for the Red Cross. And when I was growing up, not that it was that comfortable, now I'm grateful, I wasn't at the time, she was vice president of an all-black university, the oldest one in the South, the only white person there. And she raised money from the Jewish community for black education. So most of her she didn't belong to the Jewish community anymore, of the 4 people there were in Richmond. And,
clearly
and
a
she
synagogue
certainly
was there.
wasn't black. So there was suspicion about her all the way around. But she created, in downtown Richmond was like a lot of southern cities that had white flight during the riots of the 60s. And she revitalized downtown. She got Jewish leaders from all over the country to give money for merchants to be able to open up stores and restaurants downtown. And then she created entertainment events for everybody. As she said, we need a place for everybody to come together, to be together, to recreate together, so that we can put this city back together. And
Wow.
she pulled it off. She had a music festival that had like 60,000 people, an old porno movie theater that was an Atmosphere theater in Richmond. She raised money to have renovated, and now it's the stop between New York and Atlanta for Broadway shows. And
Oh, wow.
when she died, they named a park after her in Richmond that they had to get permission, because it was, Virginia land, to rename in her honor, because she had brought the black and white community together. And then last week, Richmond became, in the news again, on flames. It's now the hotbed for white supremacists. And that was, when I was growing up, the Ku Klux Klan was after us. We had FBI escorts. She was quite well known. When America, when it went to 2000, from 1999 to 2000, she was named one of the 100 most important Southerners of the millennium. And now everything she worked for is going backwards. Like in Richmond, all of that
my
stuff that I
gosh.
saw her do, I go, it's all being erased. It's erased. It's erased.
No, it's not being erased.
It can't be erased.
It's not being erased. It cannot be erased.
You don't think so? I
No.
think it's being erased.
No. It is a fact. It's there. It's been done. It's history. History is now. We are not the same
History's
now
a
as
living
we were
thing.
then.
I mean,
But we have to learn.
I know. I mean, there is the theory. Everybody thinks that Barack Obama gave birth to Donald Trump.
Well,
That's what people believe. That it's
it's a
not-
reaction.
it's
a pendulum. It's
yeah.
the pendulum.
Well,
The
if birth is a
pendulum
reaction,
swings.
then Donald Trump is a reaction.
I think it
to-
is. I do. I think it is.
to our former president.
That's right. That having an African American president,
But I think
was
it's-
too much
They were
change
so
for
angry.
people.
It's
They were
it's
so
a
angry.
reflection of who we really are, and that goes
So-
back to the question of how Trump tells us who we are.
So
That's
they
right.
trumped us they trumped us.
pun intended.
Yeah.
Do you know the
by-
great Elaine May told me when I was like, why? I was at a
You
show,
knew
but
Elaine May.
I do.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
She has
God.
all these stories.
She said to me, recently over the holidays, we've always been a horrible country. I don't know what you're so upset about.
That's funny.
She went, look at how
true,
we
though.
started.
It's true.
Look at how we started.
Yeah.
We had slaves. We took it away from. She went, we've just always been so.
If you go through every decade.
Yeah, we've just always been horrible, and you seem so shocked. And it's just that we've been marketed as a great society, but we
Yeah.
never really
No.
have been.
It's like an advertisement campaign. You're
Well,
right.
the thing about it though is that, what we always have to remember is that America is different than most every country out there in that we are an aspirational country. Our country,
like that.
Our country was founded upon an aspiration that all at the time, men were created equal, but
Excuse me, white men.
white
White
men.
men, that's
Yeah,
right.
white
That's
men.
right.
But
He did. You could see he put quotes around it with his eyes.
with my eyes.
Yeah.
But the thing is we all strive for the more perfect union, which is the recognition
Well,
that
not
we aren't.
Not
that-
we all.
Yes, yes.
Not we all.
I don't
but
believe that the Republicans are striving for that.
No, they are not striving for a more perfect union. But
They think
that-
it's perfect.
But that is it. But that is in the history of who we are, and it is a recognition that we were not perfect. We are not perfect, and that the job is ours
To always
continue
improve.
and to always improve.
Yeah. That's. Finish your thought.
Yeah, and that is what makes America great.
That was Steve's impulse for our podcast, was to use me as just sort of an example of I'm me times a million people, is to say, you know that there's that great story, I think it's Bernard Malamud, the great Torah scholar, who the old man is walking down the beach with his grandson, and they say millions and millions of starfish drying up in the noonday sun, and the old man bends down and keeps throwing the starfish back into the sea, and the little boy goes, Grandpa, for as far as your eye can see, there are millions and millions of starfish. What possible difference could your act make? And the grandfather says, it makes a difference to that one.
Yeah.
And that is sort of, I think that was sort of Steve's original impulse in even doing Angst and Daisies, is we can always make a difference to just one starfish at a time. Because what keeps me on the couch is I get so overwhelmed. I just go, okay, well, this is just hopeless. I just get so, my balloon hits the ground a little bit.
And I think if you look at history, if you look at our history, you'll see those moments when we have risen up and we have done.
We've been great.
And we've been great. We've been great
when the U.S. was
small
great.
moments
We have had moments of greatness.
of greatness.
I have to tell you, I feel so badly for my kids because,
Yeah, I know.
It's like I just keep thinking, I don't think any of us could possibly evaluate how the context in which we were born and raised has shaped us. But, the New York Times put out a sort of like an all-points bulletin to college students. My daughter just graduated last year from the Rhode Island School of Design, and she called us and she said, okay, I won't get this, but the New York Times invited every college student to write a 500-page essay.
500 page?
Not 500 word.
No.
Yeah.
They were looking for like little cub reporters.
How many did they get?
And they felt like they didn't have the voice of millennials as part of the paper.
Okay.
So she did it like, the night before, and she sent it to my husband and I, and it was just terrible, except for the first sentence was, my first day of kindergarten was 9/11, and the first time I got to vote, Donald Trump was elected president, and that's been the frame of my life.
Wow.
And I thought that was so
Great beginning.
profound.
Yeah.
And that's true. She's 21 years old, and that is the frame of her life.
That's
and I
right.
think that there is a relationship between those two things that we might not have tracked in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But I think I think that 9/11 and, being invaded on our own soil, I think something changed.
Yeah, a lot of people, when Trump came in, were like, watch for the Reichstag moment, and I think 9/11 actually was the Reichstag moment. Was the
coming in of the Nazis.
well
Yeah.
the use of some event to
Some event.
fundamentally change the nature of the country, and so we accepted weakening the Fourth Amendment because safety was more important than freedom,
Yes,
and
that's
that
right.
freedom could take away your safety.
Right.
And as Benjamin Franklin said, if you're not free, you cannot be safe.
Right,
It's
right,
it's
right. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's important to sort of notice those changes.
That's a
and-
political maneuver that goes back to Roosevelt, using the event
yeah, exactly.
to,
For our-
move your agenda.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm wondering if we can pull back to this idea about striving, that we strive for something better. I don't think our president strives for anything better. He strives for more profits and for branding and stuff
Absolutely.
that is vacant of any morals.
I don't
or
even
something.
know that he has
Yeah, I
desires.
don't-
I think he's an empty shell.
I think
of a
it's an
person.
empty shell. But I was thinking when we were talking about this idea of moving forward, that this is really a Jewish idea.
Yes.
this perfecting of this never getting at, but this yearning for the possibility of a godly kind of place, whatever that is, though we'll never get to it, but we strive for it.
That's right.
We have all those starved fish. And
Yes,
it's like
that
we'll
we want
never-
to throw back into the sea.
We want to, and you'll never get to it, but it's the yearning for that kind of
Right.
thing. And I once asked at a podcast we had recently in Washington, D.C., after the Witness Against Torture events, in which these people fasted for a week and walked around in orange jumpsuits as if they were Guantanamo prisoners with black scarves over their heads.
Wow.
In order to bring awareness.
And they get heckled by
And they get heckled,
Trump supporters,
and we talked to the
streets.
peace poets last week who go along with them and give them stuff to support them. And I asked one of the major Witness Against Torture people, his name is Brian Terrell.
And he's a Catholic worker.
He's a Catholic worker. He's been to Afghanistan. He's been in jail. I mean, every year he's in jail for one thing or another.
He's a
He was-
constant protester.
He was in Germany just last year. He was protesting American bombs being in German airfields, like American atomic bombs. And Germany's not supposed to have atomic bombs.
Right.
But they do. So he went to jail for that because he went on to that. So I asked the group that was the Witness Against Torture people that were at our podcast, I said, when we get to that place, when we strive and we get to that place of what America could be, we're not great. We're certainly far from great. We are totally flawed. Make America great again is like it's not
Yeah.
real. I mean, it doesn't mean anything.
Nothing.
So I said, what will we be? And he said, Brian said, we never were, and the way we're set up, we never will be. It's time to start all over again.
Yeah, he's a bit of an anarchist.
It's like,
So Steve thinks that too. Steve thinks we're two countries.
Well, I
Tell him
believe
your
in the
theory.
American two-state solution. I just
Yes.
sort of feel like
There's the Palestinians and the Israelis.
we should have let him
right on.
secede.
I
so
was
the
like,
Confederate Army should have won.
yeah,
Or-
Or let him
no,
secede.
just let him. We should have just let him go.
Go ahead.
Just go ahead. And,
I've been thinking that.
Yeah,
and
me too.
because what I'm tired of, and I heard, what's his name, the governor of New Hampshire, Sununu.
Oh, yeah.
was on TV, and he was like talking about like, what do we want? Places like San Francisco and Los Angeles, and they're homeless, but they're going down and down. And I'm like sitting there going,
Yeah.
you're talking about the state that generates 23% of the national GDP, that funds, states like Mississippi that creates 0.6% of our GDP, takes $5 for every dollar they put in, and they're the Republican stand on your own 2 feet. They're the biggest welfare state in the union, and if you take, say, California, Washington State, Illinois, New York, you're talking about almost 50% of the national GDP in those disgusting liberal states that all those conservative Republican states mooch and leech off of. And you know what? Take all of the Confederate states, let's split up the states with the atomic bombs, and let Texas pay for Arkansas and Alabama and Mississippi. And we godless heathens, you can create your Christian caliphate, and we godless heathens will take care of the poor, the sick, and the homeless in our degenerate thinking. And you Christians can, bring back slavery and
Yeah.
rape children. I
Have
don't know.
have your way. Have your way with your
Have
country.
your way with your country. And you know what? We'll build a wall to keep you,
There you go.
fuckers out of our...
And-
do you guys curse on here?
Oh, absolutely. He curses
okay.
all the time.
Did you say fuck?
I did. Okay.
Oh my God!
I
He
never
said
say
fuck
it.
on this show.
I don't
Caroline said, what did you say in a church to Sister
Oh, I
Susan?
know. We were in a
I think,
basilica.
she said pussy in a
I did.
church.
I did.
Pussy,
I
like,
did.
like referring to a cat.
No,
Exactly.
no.
Yeah. The Pussy Revolution. But Steve has told me the theory is if we were two countries and we took all of those people who believe that only white people really deserve anything, let them all have their own country, the evangelicals, and he said they would be broke within a year.
Yeah, they have.
He said they have no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
What's the television show about the
oh, Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale?
Oh,
I mean,
right, right.
that's what you're describing.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
exactly it.
Except it's Canada in the United States.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing is like the East Coast, West Coast. We could become the United States of Canada.
There you go. We could join Canada.
We can join Canada.
Hey,
Justin Trudeau.
yeah, we've decided to move to Canada.
Canada.
All of us. All
Oh,
the
I wanted to know
Americans.
where is your escape country? Canada.
Yeah, Canada.
Canada or Mexico?
Canada's pretty
I like
great.
Baja.
We were in Western Canada this summer.
It's
And we
pretty
did a
beautiful.
podcast on a glacier.
Well,
wow.
about a
Wow.
glacier. We
Steve,
went.
I don't
on a
wanna
glacier.
be-
Oh, you
I-
recorded.
Where are
That's
we,
right.
when are we
did
going to
recorded.
travel, Steve?
There you go.
I don't
You
know,
gotta
but
travel.
I have been looking into getting my EU passport because my grandparents came here from Italy.
Okay.
Now Italy's having a lot of right-wing problems, but if I can keep
Well,
it
they didn't vote the right-wing guy in.
They didn't vote the right-wing
Yeah.
guy in, but they've had a rise of nationalism like everywhere. But having the EU passport, I think, could be a good thing
Yeah.
at some time.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, real quick. This is Barcrawl Radio, and we're talking with Steve Saporito and Caroline Aaron of the podcast Angst and Daisies. Miss Aaron is starring in the amazing Mrs. Maisel as the senior Mrs. Maisel, and, well, we're having a great time. We'll be right back.
I was in New York working as an actress, and it was time for my son had gone to nursery school. It was time to put him in real school. We went through all the schools, that incredible process, decided he was going to go either to ethical culture. Wait, I have
it's
to
a
tell you
great
a really
school.
funny thing. So I had been working with the great playwright Wendy Wasserstein, so I had to get recommendations for him to get into these schools. So she wrote him a recommendation for ethical culture, which is truly, I have it in his box of treasures, one of the funniest things I've
Oh,
ever
that's
read.
great.
And right before September, I got her play, The Sisters Rosenzweig. They asked me if I would create the role. Madeline Kahn was doing it on Broadway, if I would create the role in Los Angeles. We went to Los Angeles for me to do the play. I had no intention of staying there, but they rented me a house that was like Gloria Swanson could have lived in. You know, I lived in an apartment in New York that looked like a toaster oven. And then I had this like mansion with a staircase and a pool and a hot tub. And my
And
husband
a
and I,
carriage house.
What is the Gloria
No, that's
Swanson?
a second song.
different
That's
house.
second
no,
house.
this, and I'm like in the hot tub one night with my husband. We're smoking a joint. My son is asleep, and he goes, "What's so bad about this?" I went, "What do you mean?" He went, "I'm just saying, what's so bad about this?" And I was like, "Oh no!" But it was his turn. So we stayed in Los Angeles for 24 years, and then we just came back here recently for Maisel, but it was it for sending my son to school in New York and thinking he could have been raised there, he could have been raised here. Where'd your kids go to school and where they end up?
But they went to public schools.
And they're doable here.
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
They're not doable in LA
But
right now.
I was an advocate. You have to be an advocate for
Yes, you
your kids when
do.
you're doing public schools.
Our son went to Bronx Science, and
yeah.
then,
He
Wow.
went to science.
then he went to the
Wow.
Marines.
And then he
He
joined
did on-
from Bronx Science. He
Did
joined the Marines.
was that with your encouragement or
was-
his?
Oh no!
No,
oh,
we
it was
said
over our
over
dead,
our dead bodies.
This was during the Iraq War.
Yep.
Oh my God, you guys! This
No,
is,
no,
It's
but
a
so
horrible.
it's not as the end. The end is
end is
not as
good.
bad. The end is not as bad. We recruited our daughter and all her friends, all her liberal, teenage friends, and they took him out to a restaurant and they talked him out of it. They said they talked him down. He
Yeah.
was 17. He couldn't do it without her permission.
Right.
Whatever. So he finished Bronx Science. He's working, going to City College, and he comes home in December
Yeah.
and he says,
Yeah.
I have signed up to go into the Marines. I have to get in shape. I joined a gym, and I'm going to go to the gym now.
So it was a
He
done.
left.
It was a done deal.
I started bawling.
oh my
I
God!
Yeah,
started bawling my head off.
But once it was a done deal, and he was in, we supported
Right,
him.
we did.
Absolutely, you
You
have
We
to.
to.
supported him.
Yeah,
to.
we
We
did.
stood behind him.
You know,
and we
I'm
said-
sure you guys have heard Pete Buttigieg talk about why he actually enlisted after Harvard and Oxford and why he enlisted. And he said, I kept meeting the same people over and over again. And I kept thinking to myself, I should know other kinds of people, and the military was the best place to do that. And, my best friend is married to an Israeli, and her daughter's my goddaughter. And, she came to school in New York City at age 20. And of course, they have to do 2 years in the Army. And then when Mayor Pete put forward 2 years of public service as part of being an American, I thought that's one of the, because ever since my friend moved to Israel, I went, Israelis have such an emotional relationship to their country. I don't have an emotional relationship to America. It's a fact. It's sort of a noun in my life. It's not a feeling. But they are like for or against. They're not like Israel no matter what. They're very critical of it. But the reason that they have that emotional relationship is they've got some skin in the game.
Right.
They put 2 years into that country, and so
Yeah.
it does belong to them.
Yeah, but you
And I
have to
thought
do
that-
it through the military.
You
Can't
do?
you get skin in the game in other ways?
Yeah,
yes,
no,
yes,
but
but the
that's
2
what-
years of
that's what
service
Mayor
is like
Pete wants to do.
clean up the bay, teach kids and teach for America.
Right,
You
right.
know what I mean? Create an arts program.
Teach
It doesn't
for
have to be.
America.
It doesn't have to be military. It's just that you have to take 2 years of your life and then do something. Something.
What
Well,
was
the
his
Peace
motiva-
Corps.
What
Yes,
was his
exactly.
motivation?
Yeah.
You know, he actually has a very strong sense of wanting to do the right thing.
And help. He
and
wants
help
to
people.
help. He's a very nurturing person.
He's yeah,
Good for him, and he's right. I mean, it is really sort of hypocritical.
and that's what he thought was the right thing.
And what did he end up like?
Well, he ended up being in the reserves. He's a smart guy. So when he tested into the Marines,
Right,
they
right.
put him into this archaic program of him having to learn this radio, how to operate this radio that they keep alive. It's goes back to World War II.
Electromagnetic pulse happens.
Exactly. So they have
But they
have
don't
to have
use it
people
anymore.
always trained,
So he wasn't doing anything
just
for
in
years.
case they have to use this radio system.
Right.
And they never and he wanted to go active, but they put him in reserves.
Yeah.
And that
he-
was difficult for him because he
but
felt
he-
like he wasn't doing anything.
But I bet he interfaced with a community that he wouldn't have met
Oh, he
otherwise.
does.
No,
Oh,
he did.
he
And
that's
loves
what- and that's
the
what
he
we
loves the
need.
people.
He's
that
proud
he
of his
met.
service. Thank God he resigned as soon as he could. And now he's at University of Maryland studying neurology.
Oh, go Terrapins.
Yeah,
Yes,
go Terrapins. They
yes,
just won
yes.
last night. Yeah.
But I mean, when you say thank God and all that kind of stuff, and I do think to myself, we have created this attitude, and me too, because I have a son, which is that somebody else's child should do that, not mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like
No
if we
child
leveled
should,
if
yeah.
we leveled the playing field a little bit and said everyone has to participate
Right, yeah.
in the safety of this country and also the cultural growth of this country. It doesn't and the sort of the environmental health of this country. We should all have to do something.
Yeah, the idea of giving 2 years to the country is not a bad idea.
Absolutely
like
not.
if if
You'd care more and you'd meet different kinds of people.
Absolutely.
and you look at things like Nikki Haley's South Carolina and the fact that like in most of the poor neighborhoods the sewage doesn't even work and it's all backed up. I mean, Nikki Haley, she created, well, she didn't create, she fostered and kept those areas being horrible places. We could go in there and kids, 18, 19-year-olds could work
Some
to
kind of
make,
a corps, a youth
make
corps.
a youth
Yeah.
corps.
Yeah.
I mean, I always said in watching like Sandy happen here,
Right.
it was kind of like a shock. And friends of mine were very, very active in Occupy Sandy out in the Rockaways and went out there a number of times. Thanksgiving, we spent Thanksgiving there going through all the donations and having Thanksgiving dinner. It was actually a really warm day in the parking lot of this church. And just sort of seeing rows and rows of houses that couldn't be occupied anymore and that were empty and kind of thinking like, if we were, and this was like a month afterwards, if we were an Amish society, there would be 50,000 people. The first people would be ripping out all
Right.
of the bad. The second people would be going and fixing the
What's that
wiring.
movie?
And
Witness,
we would
where
fix
they're putting the barn out.
Yes, yes.
We would be working like there should be some kind of civil response corps where Sandy hits and all the truck drivers and construction workers and nurses and doctors and lawyers all you have 6 months off. It's like you being called up instead of going to other countries to bomb and
Exactly.
kill.
Come here.
You're
Yeah.
going to spend 6 months
because we're here for each other.
because we're here
Yes.
for each other.
Right.
And
We're-
you get
that's
free
the
college
reason-
tuition or something.
That's the
or-
reason
or
we're
your loans
born.
and-
Yes.
And it's the reason we
Forgiven.
live, is we live for
To
you,
connect.
To connect. That's what we're here for. We're not here to set up walls.
I'll
See,
tell
that's
you-
the difference between the liberal and the conservative view. The conservative
Yeah.
view is I'm here for myself to make as much
And
money
my-
as
and
I
my group.
can and my group.
and
Do you
my
know, I'll
people.
tell you a really
so vacant.
to like strip that down to its most primal
All right,
space.
this will be our last story because we're like really
I
at the
did-
end of our hour.
Oh,
I did-
really?
yeah,
Already?
really.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. This went quickly.
Yeah.
I did this TV movie years ago based on the hit book Tuesdays with Maury. And so they showed us 60 Minutes did a profile of Maury. And he had said when he was first diagnosed with that horrible and most cruel of diseases, Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, that when he couldn't wipe his own ass anymore, that was it. He was checking out. And he wanted the cocktail and he wanted to go. And then, of course, he got to that point where he could no longer do that. And, he kept lowering the bar and lowering the bar. And he said, it's so funny how we observe old age, but if you think of life as a circle, which many people do, when you're young, somebody carries you, somebody feeds you, somebody wipes your ass. When you get very, very old, the same thing happens. And so as each thing kept disappearing, he said he figured it out. What makes life worth it is just connecting. And he got to the point where he could only blink. Are you cold, Maury? Do you need something to eat? Would you like to turn over? And he could blink. When the muscles gave up on him and he couldn't even blink, he could make no contact with any person any way. He said, that's when it's done. And so if you take that story and you think about it, blown up into its biggest version, it is about us kind of connecting with each other in some way. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun to be here.
Yeah.
It's so fun to connect. You know what I mean?
This is Barcrawl Radio. We're at Gebhard's Beer Culture Bar, as we say, across the street from the mortuary, where we'll all end up.
Not me, but go ahead.
And Steve?
This is the Angst and Daisies podcast. And again, you can find us on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, the iTunes Store, but not social media.
And you can find Barcrawl Radio at all those places and social media. I
Yeah,
guess
well,
on
we're kind of
some social
lax,
media.
actually. We're bad.
This has been an enormous amount of fun. This cannot be our last
No,
duel.
we
We
should-
we
Yeah.
would love to come back and
Yes,
and do
and vice
another one.
versa.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
nice to meet you, Ellen and Becky.
really.
Thank you for having us.
Wonderful
Thanks
to
for
meet
You
coming.
throw a great radio party.
Yeah, you really do. And-
You throw
and
a
the drinks-
great party.
And the drinks are awesome.
Yeah.
There you go.
And they're on Gebhard, so thank you, Gebhard.
Thank
you,
you.
Gebhard.
Thank you, guys. To be continued.
I was saying to Steve that this is kind of our first date.
Yes, it is.
All right.
I think I'm going to ask you out again.
Ooh.
Oh,
You
well,
already decided. That's
I
we
did.
decided you're invited back anytime.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's perfect bar conversation.
I know,
Sure
right?
is.
Well, look, we're at a bar.
Yeah, that's true
Which
too.
is so perfect in the afternoon. That means
Yeah.
you're a real drinker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just a little league drinker, but if I'm drinking in the afternoon, I think
I know, it's true.
graduators.
Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
so
You're a big girl.
It's not even after 5. Well,
I
it is
know.
somewhere.
Somewhere.
That was my biggest fear when I was pregnant with my son. I said to my husband, okay, we have to say all the things that would be really hard for us to love because the job is unconditional love.
Yeah.
I said, like, you could admit to me if you had a gay son or a gay daughter, that'd be hard for you, and then we're going to get it out of the way. So we both had to confess, and I said, okay, these are the two things that would be hard for me. A kid who wanted to go into the military, that would just... And a kid that wanted to marry a Republican. Those are other anything else I could go for.
One, two, right? One,
Yeah,
two.
1, 2. I could go transgender. I could go. You know what I mean? Anything
Yeah.
else, but I went, okay, and if that's what happens, then that's what we're going to love.
Because sometimes we're here, we have like 6 or 7 people.
Wow.
Well,
around the
including
table.
And they have
us.
to share mics.
And no,
we
we
have
have,
enough.
a setup
We have a
for
setup for it.
for
Their
a lot
board
of
is
people.
much bigger than ours. I'm having board envy.